This Dana Show podcast brought to you by Air Comfort Service Heating and Cooling. Need service, maintenance, or a new HVAC system? Air Comfort Service works 24/7, keeping area homes and businesses comfortable. If you have a heating and cooling problem, visit aircomfortservice.com.
Dana Lash is off and running, generating the buzz.
All bets are off at this point.
So great to talk to you, Dana. You're my favorite.
Dana, you and I are blood brothers for the American dream.
Dana Lash, the conservative alternative. This is The Dana Show.
It's not so much a recount. We're looking into the issue of whether or not people who participated in the June the 3rd Democratic primary crossed over into the Republican primary this Tuesday night. And we've already found more than 1,000 examples of that in one county alone.
Wow, that's Chris McDaniel talking about now some of the uncovered illegal votes in Mississippi, in one Mississippi county. That's, this primary has gotten more and more bizarre as it goes on. And the more that I hear, and I'm going to tell you something, these citizen journalists that are there in Mississippi doing the work of uncovering this stuff, it's not mainstream media doing it. It's these citizen journalists there who are uncovering all of this, are doing some amazing investigative work. Make no mistake. The more that I hear about this, and this is why I'm glad True the Vote is on the ground. I still am not convinced that it's enough to make up the difference. But the more that I hear, especially about Haley Barbour and Thad Cochran and what they have done in Mississippi and how they did everything to win at all costs, it almost makes me forget that it's Friday and I have a frozen margarita machine. That's what happens. But this story takes a really sad and bizarre turn, right? I think is this like the dirtiest primary? I think this is. I've seen dirty primaries. I have been in the thick of some nasty ones. This probably, I think, is the nastiest that I've seen, just in my experience. Maybe there are some out there that are worse, but here's where it gets bad. So the Clarion Ledger reported this morning that the Mississippi Tea Party leader, Mark Mayfield, committed suicide. Horrible. And prayers go out for his family and friends and loved ones. I mean, this is horrible. The Clarion Ledger reports that Mark Mayfield, was the vice chairman of the Mississippi Tea Party. He is one of the 3 men who was charged with conspiring with Clayton Kelly to photograph Senator Thad Cochran's wife in the nursing home and create a video going against Cochran. Now, there's a lot of discussion and about his Thad Cochran's wife and all of this, because his wife's in a nursing home and he's with someone else apparently. That's kind of like, I think, another discussion to have, maybe separate from this. We'll get into that because that's interesting. Thad Cochran's wife, she has dementia. She's in a nursing home, and he is he's seen another woman. He has. And the woman apparently is, there's so many reports about this. The woman's apparently like his executive assistant and that, he's being unfaithful to his wife who is in a nursing home. And some of what I've heard from, does that in any way mean that, anybody should be taking video? No, it doesn't. That doesn't give any justification. But I don't know. It's just so, Kevin, see, this is so weird. It's Mississippi. It's like watching a cleaner version of True Blood down there, honestly. But this situation, anyway, back to the suicide. This situation with Mark Mayfield is absolutely, we'll get into the Thad Cochran and all of that, the mistress or whatever here in a little bit. But it's a horrible story. So he was one of the individuals that had worked to take photographs of Thad Cochran's wife in her nursing home. And he was an attorney and state and local Tea Party leader. He was arrested last month along with Richard Sager and another gentleman. And it ended his career. It ended Mark Mayfield's career. And this apparently is one of the costs of this primary. I mean, I'm just speculating at this point, but it seems as though, it was so dirty, and the stress from that, what he did being publicized, I don't know. It is really, I mean, there was never, the other thing that's important to point out, and this is from Legal Insurrection, is that while Mark Mayfield was charged with conspiring, no one is actually, in terms of taking photographs of Thad Cochran's wife while she was in the nursing home, there was never actually any clear substantive evidence that showed that he played an actual central role in that whole whatever that was. But the reaction and then all of the rumors and exaggerations and everything afterwards, and he denied the charges completely, became, I think, too much. This is such a sad story, and this whole primary it's just one of the nastiest things I've ever seen. Because this is what happens when power wants power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. I have seen people who have presented themselves as amazing people who have been corrupted by power. I have seen grassroots groups completely turn to ash because they have been corrupted by power and corrupted by promises of working in somebody's office or being someone's assistant or maybe getting a job with, here or there with this think tank or that think tank. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's a Lord Acton quote. And in Mississippi, there's a clear case of that. This is what I mean when I say it is a battle for the soul of the party. Because now we're hearing, and there's been a lot of investigation into county by county of fraudulent votes. Is it going to be enough? I'm all for counting them. Frankly, I would love to see Chris McDaniel as the nominee instead of Thad Cochran. Make no mistake. I also don't want Harry Reid as Senate Majority Leader, and I disdain Haley Barbour. I think what they did in the state of Mississippi is a shame. It's a stain on conservatives. It's because it stains Republicans, not stain on conservatives. It stains Republicans. This is why people don't want to identify as being members of the Republican Party. When I was doing exit poll analysis back in 2012 for CNN, when we would get like these just massive piles of paper, we would get all this stuff, and we had iPads that had, it was like their special, it was their tabulations of exit polls from all around the country, and they would show you county by county. You could go and study county by county why people were voting for the individual whom they were voting for and what was their biggest issue. And I was sitting there with James Carville and Ari Fleischer and everyone. We were going through all this reams of paperwork and looking at all of this stuff. And the number one, and this is the thing that really stood out to me, and I made this point on TV. What really got me is that these people who were voting, even in the primaries, and then even, after 2012 with exit polling, when you go back and look at that data, people were voting, they were voting for enthusiasm, they were voting for name, and they were actually a lot more conservative fiscally than the media wanted to give voters credit for. But here's the problem. They did not want to be identified as Republicans. They were so terrified of even having their vote being associated with a Republican that they would go ahead and vote for a Democrat. Hypocrisy, where it concerns the GOP, is always going to make more waves than the egregiously greater hypocrisy where it concerns the Democrat Party. Well, it always make more waves than that in the media and in headlines. That's the reality in which we live until we decide to stop with the circular firing squad and change it. And that's this kind of stuff. That's what's happening in Mississippi is exactly why this is what runs people off. I talked to a guy this morning who resigned from his post as chairman of the Republican Party in his county. This is crazy. I personally don't like walking away from a fight. I go to where the fight is. I don't want to, I'm still against creating a third party. I want to win so badly. I want to run these rat whatever's out of the party and take it over from within. That is still personally my goal. That's what I would like to see happen. But these people like Haley Barbour, I'm telling you folks, what happened in Mississippi will keep happening. It will set a precedence for the party to go and attack their base and use every weapon against their base that progressives would use, every identity politic, the impugning of characters, the whole bit, unless they are tarred and feathered publicly now for it. It's not inside baseball. This is what I'm talking about with the fight for the soul of the party. This is a dangerous precedent that could be set. We have a lot of stuff